My name is Zennan Perkins.
And I'm Stephanie Moore.
And this is Fact
or Fable.
Alright, well we have 4 stories to show you today. For the first one will be the Croswell Opera House, then Seven Gables, Ghost Trestle, and finally, Stanley Hotel. I'll be starting it off with the first story, all the way back in 1897. So there's a lot of sightings, a lot of different things that have been saw in the Croswell Opera House, a place that generally has a lot of fun and general good enjoyment, lots of different shows and plays.
Where is the Croswell?
The Croswell Opera House is actually located around here in Adrian, Michigan. It's quite an interesting little place. They put on lots of different student shows and stuff like that. But all the way back in 1897, not so great things were happening. It was quite a new building at the time, but the grandstand, a massive grandstand right in the front of the show, collapsed over around 2,000 people. And when it collapsed, many people were taken to the hospital, and they used the Croswell itself as a hospital place for these different people. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the significance is between the sightings and the deaths at the Opera House Opera House Theater, but I think it's pretty interesting. Got anything else to say?
It does sound pretty interesting. I'm interested to see.
Oh, look who it is.
I think you're going to want to hear my opinion, because
I'd
I've actually been to the Croswell Opera House, and I know a lot about it. So I'm going to tell you my experience. I was doing a show, as I do, and I was all alone. I had to use the restroom, so I walked off by myself, and I just saw these shadowy figures everywhere out of the corner of my eye, and it was actually kind of spooky, So I don't know. It was kind of just that. Also, there was this eerie vibe, but I'm not that scared, but I just feel like you needed to know because I'm the expert on the situation.
All right, thank you for that little information. Well, that's pretty interesting stuff. All these different sightings and things have never really been documented exactly, which I find to be pretty interesting. I don't know if we can really pinpoint exactly what this means, but how do you feel about it? Is it fact or fable?
I don't know. I would put it more to the fable side. I've never been to the Croswell Opera House myself, so I'd have to see some of this for myself.
Exactly. I think that's the most important part. We need to see these things for ourselves. All right, well, I'll throw it to you for the next story.
All right, we have the Legends of the Seven Gables Road. It says that there was a witch that lived in a house and put a curse on a gate where if you walk through it, you would hear a scream and then you'd die. At one point, the witch walked through the gate herself because she heard a baby crying, and then she died 2 months later.
That's pretty interesting. Do you think that the fact that it took 2 months for it to pass on is an interesting little continuity break? Because I think, doesn't it say that when people cross through the door or cross through the gate in general, people die almost immediately? I think that 2-month period is pretty interesting. It's her own curse as well, which could make it
I feel like she had a little bit of a immunity to...
An immunity to the curse, that's definitely possible.
Curse.
Well, I find that pretty interesting. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about the whole witch's curse thing. Is there any documentation of this happening? Anything on that?
We don't have much. 25 years later, a family did move into the house that she used to live in, and the father went insane, and it says he killed his family and then hung himself. But there are different versions of that story.
And there's the problem. The different versions of the story make that a little difficult to tell, You can't really put that into perspective.
That's true.
Look who's here.
Well, I'll tell you my side of the story. I'm that witch you were talking about,
Oh.
And, all the people around there, they shunned me, outcast me. They hated me because I was using magic or whatever. I mean, sure, it was true, but, they didn't have to be so mean about it.
Right.
So, because I hated all of them, because they hated me, I, put a spell thingy on the gate to kill all of them because, they were so mean to me. So, I mean, obviously I didn't intend for me to die too. But, whatever happened, I'm happy with it because they were all so mean to me. Bye.
Thank you.
Well, that was a pretty tragic story.
Yeah.
Quite difficult to hear. Well, at the same time, that's a pretty interesting side of the story, hearing it from the witch's perspective. But at the same time, I'm not really sure how I feel about it. I'm a little skeptical, considering there's not a whole lot of information, not only on her death, on the witch itself, but also this family that's oh so mysterious in the death. I'm not exactly sure how to feel about that. Well, throw it to you. Fact or fable?
I feel as though, considering there are different versions of the story and we don't have any solid, concrete information, that it has to lean more towards the fable side of this.
I agree. Well, For the third story, we have the ghost trestle, which is a pretty interesting one, and one I'm not exactly too familiar with. Do you know exactly where ghost trestle is?
I do not. Please tell me.
Well, the ghost trestle is in Madison Township. It's pretty interesting. It's the whole scenario took place around the 1800s. A pretty interesting thing is that it was a family of 3, and their barn caught on fire. Barns are a really important thing during that time period, so I found that interesting. The family's barn caught on fire, and while the father was trying to put it out, they were trying to get the mother and the kid out of there, and they were trying to signal for help. And obviously, this isn't modern day century. We don't have phones to call 911 or the fire department, so they had to get out as soon as possible. And what they did was they walked to the train tracks and tried to signal a train. And that was a pretty interesting style. But what happened was they apparently fell into the train tracks and she died. People have allegedly, near the bridge, near the overall event, have been noticing car troubles, which I found to be interesting. Things like their cars would not turn on and electronics would stop working. I find this pretty interesting. What's your take on that?
That is interesting, especially if it's a newer model and you haven't really seen any problems with your electronics or your car before, and it just mysteriously starts happening in that area. Definitely mysterious.
This one's pretty interesting because I actually have some personal experience. I've been to Ghost Trestle before. It's a really interesting place. It's spooky, got some vibes, but I never had any personal troubles with my electronics over there. So I wouldn't rule it out as a possibility, but I definitely want to say I'm skeptical because of my experiences.
Are you guys talking about Ghost Trestle? Because, like, I've totally been there, so my friends hate me, so they dared me to go there all by myself. So, like, of course I do it, because, like, who turns down a dare, So I went there and, like, I parked my car under the bridge and turned it off because, I had to look around, of course. So I looked around and, like, there was nothing there. Sure, it might have been a little bit spooky or whatever, but, maybe that's just because I knew it's supposed to be haunted or whatever. But then I went back into the car and, like, I went to turn on my car and, like, it wouldn't start. And I was like, what the heck? And, like, honestly, like, I didn't know what to do, so I just called my brother, who's a deadbeat at home, who has no job, which he should, by the way. And I asked him to pick me up, and, like, while I was waiting there, it was just kind of spooky, honestly, but don't tell my friends I said that. And then he got there, and it turned on with no problems. And I was like, what the heck? Anyways, I gotta go, bye.
Well, that was definitely an annoying perspective, but certainly one that I'm interested in hearing about. So those personal experiences, we actually have quite a few on document, which I think is the first of these scenarios. We have different people noticing different effects with the cars, all these things. How do you think they connect to the overall train track situation? Because they're near each other, but they could have separate intentions. Do you think there's anything there for that?
I think that if this is fact, that a reason why they would be stopping is because she died trying to stop a train, and the train didn't stop, so it's kind of like she's making the car stop.
That's a very good point. That's an interesting connection. I find the connection between the stopping and the starting of the train to be really interesting. Now, fact or fable?
I'm going to lean this more towards fact.
Well, I try to keep a skeptical mind on it, but I definitely see a lot of evidence, and I'm gonna go for fact on this one. I find this one pretty interesting. All right, we'll throw it to you for our last story.
Yes, the Stanley Hotel, located in Estes Park, Colorado. It is a famous hotel. There have been multiple counts of paranormal activity, lots of famous rooms that most of this has happened. One of them being the concert hall basement. Now you can actually go down there, but it's there's this girl. It said she went down there and she was sheltered herself from the winter, and a janitor found her and kicked her out, and she froze to death outside because she didn't have any place to go. So she lives down there. Her spirit does. That's what is said, and you can see her if you get a picture.
Interesting. Well, interesting about the Stanley Hotel. Isn't there some sort of connection to the world today, specifically with film?
Yes, there is. Stephen King, he based The Shining off of this hotel. He stayed in room 217, and he had a nightmare. I don't know what the nightmare is, but he was inspired to write The Shining from that nightmare.
That's pretty interesting. Now, have there been any counts of paranormal activity from guests in the hotel as a recent? Anything?
As a recent, I do not know.
It's interesting. Now, all these counts specifically with Stephen King's important because he's a famous writer, novelist. He's a bit of an extravagant character. There's a lot to go off of there. There's different stories, perspectives based on this hotel that has a lot of people, a lot of eyes looking on it specifically due to the film. So, do you think a lot of these could be propped up based on the importance of the hotel as a whole, thanks to the movie and film, or do you think that some of these things were happening before the film or movie?
I
film or book?
feel as though they have been happening before the movie. Not just him having that one experience. People previously have had experiences. But I do feel that after the movie and everybody knowing that it was based off that they go there to see paranormal activity and they try to hype it up and bring as much as they can.
It's pretty interesting.
Howdy, y'all. I'm a ghost, ghost cowboy. And I want to tell you my experience about being Stanley Hotel. It's pretty interesting, actually. I really like it when the women come into my room because, who does not love a fine young woman?
You got this.
But of course, I respect the women. So if they don't want me in their room, they can just tell me. But of course, I can't leave without it on the cheek, All right, it's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Are you located?
In 4, I don't know how to read. I'm a cowboy.
Thank you, illiterate cowboy. That was a phenomenal little piece and tidbit. There's been a lot of different ghosts. Now, apparently, it was said in the film that each of the rooms housed a different ghost. Now, have there been differences in accounts of spirituality through the different rooms? Do you know about that?
Yes. There are different rooms that have different ghost experiences. It seems as though lots of ghosts live in this hotel. The cowboy lives in the cowboy lives in room 428, it is said, and there are a couple other ghosts. Room 413, old-fashioned man is seen sitting down. He seems to not do any harm, just sits there. And the grand staircase. It is said that you're not supposed to put mirrors facing each other. And the Stanley Hotel staircase is filled with them facing each other.
Interesting.
And multiple people say and have pictures that you can go in the staircase, take pictures, and you can occasionally catch an orb.
Now, all of these things are pretty interesting on their own, but putting together, I think that's a pretty interesting story. Now, I'll throw it to you for fact or fable.
I think it is fact. There is definitely enough solid information, accounts that have happened there that bring enough proof to it being fact, but I would definitely like to see some of this myself.
That's pretty interesting. Now, from my perspective, I actually would say I disagree with you on this. All of these rumors and, sightings of different ghosts and stuff could definitely have to do with the film and Stephen King's importance in all of this.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to take that into account, especially with the more recent claims, because, the book came out 60, 70-ish, I'm not exactly sure myself, but all the accounts could definitely have something to do with the infamy of the hotel itself, and I would say it's Fable, just because of that. All right, that's our time today. We really appreciate y'all watching us. This is Fact or Fable. We'll see you on the next one.